What if I told you that in the heart of Africa, among poverty, conflict, and post-colonial scars, emerged a cultural movement so stylish, so bold, and so dignified that it turned sidewalks into catwalks and fashion into resistance? Welcome back to the History of the World, where we explore untold stories, forgotten kingdoms, and rich cultural legacies from across the globe. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to our channel and support our mission to bring more powerful African and world history to life. Your support helps us continue telling stories that matter. Today, we take you to the vibrant streets of Brazzaville and Kinshasa, where elegance is not just a choice, it's a way of life. This is the true story of La Sape, the society of ambiance makers and elegant people, a movement born from colonialism, raised through identity, and admired by the world. At first glance, La Sape, the Société des ambianceurs et des personnes élégantes, might look like an extravagant fashion trend. Well-dressed men and women strutting through urban streets in flashy suits and colorful ties, sometimes in neighborhoods marked by poverty and struggle. But in reality, La Sape is much more profound than a fashion statement. La Sape is a cultural identity, a social philosophy, and a code of conduct. It represents the belief that elegance can be an act of resistance, that style can uplift the spirit even in the harshest conditions. In Brazzaville and Kinshasa, to be a sapeur, or sometimes a sapeuse for women, is not simply about wearing European suits. It is about how you wear them. It's about posture, politeness, humility, and presence. A true sapeur is expected to be nonviolent, to speak with eloquence, and to carry themselves with the grace of nobility, even if they live in a one-room apartment in a working-class neighborhood. Style is the tool. Dignity is the message. Who becomes a sapeur? Anyone can aspire to be a sapeur, regardless of social class or income level, but it comes with discipline and sacrifice. Some sapeurs save money for months, even years, to purchase a single piece from a prestigious European brand like Dior, Gucci, Versace, or Yves Saint Laurent. And when they walk out onto the street, it is not just for show. It's a ceremony, a moment of theatrical pride, sometimes accompanied by music, cheers, and photos. And while the movement is most visible among men, women have increasingly joined, bringing their own interpretations of elegance, mixing African prints with luxury accessories, high heels with bold colors, and reclaiming their place in a male-dominated aesthetic world. More than fashion, a performance of self-worth, La Sape also has performative elements. In some neighborhoods, there are even competitions and public gatherings, like Sapeur battles, where elegance is judged not just by the price of the suit, but by how creatively and confidently it is worn. There's ritual, drama, and community celebration. It's a fashion show without a stage. It's a rebellion without a weapon. It's a philosophy that says, even if life strips me of everything, it will never take away my pride. In many ways, sapeurs are modern-day griots, telling stories through their clothing, stories of survival, identity, and cultural fusion. And in a society still healing from colonial wounds and economic instability, La Sape offers something many cannot afford to lose: hope. To truly understand La Sape, we must go back in time, not just decades, but more than a century, to the era of European colonization in Central Africa. The land we now call Congo-Brazzaville in the Democratic Republic of Congo was once carved up by France and Belgium during the brutal era known as the Scramble for Africa. Colonial fashion as a tool of power, the European colonizers introduced their culture, language, religion, and their fashion. In fact, Western clothing, became a visible symbol of authority and civilization. Missionaries, colonial administrators, and military officers all wore suits and uniforms that distinguished them from the so-called uncivilized natives. For Africans, wearing a suit was not just about looking elegant. It was about survival, acceptance, and upward mobility within a deeply racist system. Many Congolese men were recruited into the colonial armies, such as the Force Publique in the Belgian Congo. When they returned from serving in Europe or abroad, they brought back more than military knowledge. They brought back Parisian style, European etiquette, and a deep desire to imitate and eventually outshine the colonizers in appearance. Thus, the first seeds of La Sape were planted, a strange and fascinating fusion of imitation, rebellion, and aspiration. The first generation of sapeurs, dandies in the colonies. By the early 20th century, in colonial cities like Brazzaville and Leopoldville, now Kinshasa, a new urban elite was emerging. Clerks, soldiers, civil servants, teachers, Africans working under colonial administration, but determined to stand out. To truly understand the origins of La Sape, we must look beyond the clothing and into the soul of a people shaped by colonial oppression and creative resistance. The movement was born in Brazzaville, specifically in the historic neighborhood of Congo in the southern part of the city, during the colonial era when European powers dominated Central Africa. Western clothing was a symbol of status and civilization imposed by the French. But Congolese youth began to reinterpret this fashion with flamboyant style and elegance. In the post-colonial period, the movement truly began to take form when young Congolese immigrants in Paris, inspired by French haute couture, brought their style back home, blending European luxury with African pride. These early trendsetters, names like Joe Ballard, Ben Mukasha, Norba de Paris, Stervos Niarchos, and Jocelyn Armel, were not just dressing to impress. They were crafting an identity, building a philosophy of elegance as a form of self-worth and resistance. Their return to Brazzaville and Kinshasa helped spread the culture across both Congos, where La Sape took deep root as a proud expression of dignity, creativity, and rebellion. From its birthplace in Bakongo, La Sape became a way for the Congolese to reclaim power, not through politics or violence, but through color, posture, and grace. They began dressing like French gentlemen, but with a twist. They added vibrant colors, flamboyant accessories, and their own expressive gestures. These were not passive imitators. They were early cultural alchemists, turning oppression into style. These men were the first sapeurs, from post-colonial identity to a pop culture movement. After independence in the 1960s, Congo experienced waves of political turmoil, dictatorships, coups, economic collapse. In those hard times, La Sape didn't disappear, it flourished. Why? Because in chaos, people cling to beauty, pride, and symbols of stability. The 1970s and 1980s saw La Sape gain major visibility thanks to Papa Wemba, the legendary Congolese musician who became the unofficial Pope of Sapeurs. Through his music, concerts, and personal style, Papa Wemba elevated La Sape into a global art form, showcasing it in Paris, Brussels, and Tokyo. He said famously, "White people invented the clothes, but we, the Congolese, make an art out of it." Papa Wemba transformed the image of the African man, not as a victim, but as a creator, a trendsetter, a visionary. He inspired an entire generation of youth in Congo to believe that style could be a way of reclaiming lost pride. La Sape, once a quiet form of resistance in the streets of Brazzaville and Kinshasa, has grown into an international cultural symbol, a living art form that continues to inspire people around the world. From luxury fashion brands to music videos, documentaries, university research, and even global street-style movements, the elegance of Congolese sapeurs has captured imaginations far beyond the African continent. In the world of fashion, major international designers have drawn inspiration from Sape. The boldness, color coordination, and fearlessness of sapeurs have influenced global campaigns for brands like Gucci, Dior, and Louis Vuitton. In 2012, the Guinness beer brand released a celebrated ad called Sapeurs, featuring Congolese men preparing for their day, not as warriors or workers, but as artists of style, with the tagline made of more. It showed the world a different image of Africa, one rooted in creativity, class, and confidence. Musicians have also helped spread the culture. Legendary Congolese singer Papa Wemba was not only a style icon, but also an international ambassador for Sape. He insisted that music and fashion were two sides of the same cultural coin. His philosophy influenced artists like Stromae, Solange Knowles, and Sapologie, who have all incorporated Sapeur imagery in their performances or videos. In Kinshasa and Brazzaville, music videos often double as fashion shows, where sapeurs showcase their wardrobes like models on a Parisian runway, only with more passion and flair. But perhaps one of the most powerful signs of Sape's global impact is the academic interest it has sparked. In recent years, researchers and university students from across the globe have traveled to the Congo to study the movement. One particularly striking case involved a Japanese graduate student who visited Brazzaville to conduct fieldwork for his thesis on Sape. He lived among the sapeurs, interviewed them, observed their rituals, and returned to Tokyo with hundreds of pages of notes, proving that this is more than fashion, it's sociology, anthropology, and cultural diplomacy in action. Sape has also inspired local movements across Africa and in the diaspora. Young people in Ivory Coast, Cameroon, Senegal, and France have adopted the spirit of Sape to celebrate identity and personal excellence. Some cities even hold Sapeur festivals, complete with parades, fashion contests, and debates about elegance and ethics. Online, entire communities are dedicated to the philosophy of Sape, sharing looks, life stories, and style codes that bind them together across continents. In a world where fast fashion dominates and personal branding is digital, Sape stands apart as a slow, deliberate, intentional art, one that values heritage, discipline, and the celebration of self through clothing. For Congolese people, Sape is more than cultural pride. It is a form of diplomacy, a way to say to the world, "You see our pain, now see our pride." Sape is not just fashion, it's power, it's pride, it's poetry in motion. Born from colonial disruption, shaped by resilience and celebrated around the world, Sape is a living testimony that style can be more than appearance. It can be identity, a message from Congo to the world. We may struggle, but we will shine. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe to the History of the World. Help us keep bringing you powerful stories from Africa and beyond. Stories that history books too often forget. Thank you for watching, and remember, true style is eternal.